Welcome to the Planeswalker Project.
What is up, ladies, gentlemen, and NB friends? So, starting off Dominaria season on a strong note, I wanted to take a look at a commander that really intrigues me. One who is very much something I wanted in a commander. Slimefoot the Stowaway. Slimefoot is a 2/3 fungus creature that you can pay 4 mana to create a 1/1 sapling. Whenever a sapling you control dies, Slimefoot will deal 1 damage to each opponent and then you gain a life. So pretty much, he's a Golgari colored blood artist that can create tokens. Now, this is a notoriously powerful set of abilities, and we are definitely going to be taking advantage of them both with this deck. Don't forget to give this video a like if you want to see more, it'll let others know it's a good one. So the vast majority of the creatures we will be running in this build will either make sapling tokens or do things related to those tokens. Many of these are fungus creatures and have the ability to gain a spore counter at each upkeep. Most of the spore counters can be removed in groups of 3 to create a 1/1 sapling. Some have abilities that can utilize these sapling tokens for various purposes, whether they be for destruction or for card draw, and these will often synergize with Slimefoot. We can run cards like Blood Artist and Zulaport Cutthroat to maximize the hurt dished out by our saplings dying, but we need those little plants to get it growing. So let's begin with our assortment of fungi. The Death Spore Thallid has the aforementioned abilities that both gain a spore counter at every one of our upkeeps and helping us create saplings. You can sacrifice a sapling in order to give a target creature -1/-1 until the end of turn. This serves as a great source of removal for your opponent's creatures. Psychotrope Thallid, again with those 2 standard Thallid abilities, but this one lets us sack a sapling and pay 1 mana in order to draw a card. This gives us some nice card advantage and added value to those tokens. Savage Thallid brings those abilities and gives a regeneration ability to target fungus. This is good to help protect Slimefoot should someone try to wipe the board. They're going to want to get him off the battlefield, so this is very helpful to include. Spore Crown Thallid isn't quite in the same vein as the other fungi, but it does act as a lord creature for both fungi and sapling creatures, so it helps. Spore Mound very much has landfall without it being landfall. We get a sapling every time a land enters the battlefield. Simple enough. Spore Sower Thallid is a very basic creature for this deck. It helps churn out the saplings. Not much to say here, but having multiple instances of the 2 abilities on the field is also very useful. Sporoloth Ancient is a rather unique creature in that it does have those 2 standard abilities of our Thallid creatures, but this one actually modifies that second ability to create a sapling, changing the requirement from 3 spore counters to only 2. This change in cost can help make the difference between making 1 sapling and making 2, and it also gives us the ability on our non-fungal creatures, so it's nice to have should we find ways to get spore counters on them. Next up is Thallid. Very basic again, but at 1 mana this is a good card to play turn 1. Thalon of Havenwood is another historic legendary and formerly the captain of this deck. At least until Slimefoot grew big enough to do something on its own. Thalon buffs our fungi the more spore counters we have on them, so the more that they accumulate, the bigger they get. And we can consume our graveyard fungi in order to put more spore counters onto our creatures. Next up, Utopia Mycon is perhaps my favorite of the fungal creatures. It can utilize our saplings as mana ramp. Sack a sapling, get 1 mana of any color. Not bad, and this can help make our deck ramp a lot faster once we have a decent number of saplings on board. Verdant Force, a reprinted behemoth in Dominaria, creates a sapling at the beginning of each upkeep. So in a 4-player commander game, by the time the turn comes yours after this hits the battlefield, you'll have 4 new saplings in play. This can give you a ton of value to start your turn with. MacLeod is perhaps the producer of saplings you're most familiar with, making appearances in plenty of other decks. You could sacrifice a ton of creatures to this thing. It becomes massive, getting 2/+1 counters for each creature sacrificed, and then at every one of your upkeeps, you get saplings for each +1/+1 counter on MacLeod. Verdaloth the Ancient is another massive sapling producer. The more mana that we invest into that kicker cost, the more saplings we get out of the deal. And it's a lure to saplings and tree folks. The tree folk park is rather irrelevant. Necrogenesis and Night Soil both let us consume cards from the graveyard to create sapling tokens, making them both useful as grave hate against anyone doing shenanigans with the graveyard, and just adding more tokens into the battlefield. Fungal Sprouting looks at whatever biggest creature you control is, and then it creates saplings equal to that creature's power. Sapling Symbiosis gives each of your creatures in play a little sapling friend, and then Triumph of the Hordes makes them all infectious and you win by poisoning everyone to death. I'm not even kidding. We do actually run some Infect in this deck. Slimefoot, very interestingly enough, deals damage much like Nekusar, in that they are explicitly dealing the damage to our opponents rather than just having an opponent lose life. Why bother wasting so many saplings working our opponents down from 40 life when we could simply throw on something like Grafted Exoskeleton, Pyresis, Glistening Oil, just sacrifice 10 saplings and suddenly our opponents are all dead. Seems like a nice plan to me, doesn't it? Anyway, we do want to cover some win conditions. The aforementioned infectious nonsense aside, your standard Craterhoof Behemoth will make your opponents cry that you have a billion little plants coming at them that are suddenly the size of Godzilla. It's always a good include in these decks. Beastmaster Ascension if you want to give them a fighting chance too, I guess. To me, I want this deck to win fast and hard once I start going, so drop an Astronaut's Altar, drop Parallel Lives, start spawning tokens with Slimefoot, and you have an infinite combo engine to win the game. Helm of the Host, a new card I want to try to get some mileage on before I begin gushing about it. It'll give you extra mini Slimefoots to up the damage caused by your dying sapling tokens. Now for a quick look at our ramp package. It's not as glamorous as our win conditions, but then again we all can't just run a deck full of Craterhoof Behemoths and call it a day. Your usual suspects of Cultivate, Nature's Lore, Zendikar Resurgent, Cryptolitherite, and a new card I'm actually really pumped about trying out, Song of Freya-Lys. You get to make all of your creatures into mana dorks for 2 turns while this saga is on chapters 1 and 2, and upon chapter 3, every creature you control will get a +1/+1 counter. They also gain Vigilance, Trample, and Indestructible until the end of the turn. This is a great way to set up a victory after getting plenty of ramp to cast your spells, so this does very much fit into both the ramp and win con categories. So let's talk about a card that I'm sure at least one of you will remind me of should I forget to talk about it. Doubling Season. You know, the card that's likely in all of your Super Friends decks? Yes, I'm here to talk to you today about how it actually does have uses outside of Atraxa. So in terms of how it works with this deck, you'll get double the spore counters placed on your Thallid creatures, you'll get double the +1/+1 counters on things like Mycoloth, and most importantly, you get double the saplings when you create them. This is a card that can take you from doing okay and dirtling about to absolutely grinding your opponents into oblivion. The only reason I would accept for not including this powerhouse in your deck is because of the current price tag of well over $60 being rather out of the price range of many players. Anyway, onto the mana base. Our mana base is rather standard for a 2-color build with my usual inclination to stick to lands that don't enter the battlefield tapped. I included some more aggressive dual lands like Blooming Marsh to aim for early game mana fixing. This card is great until about turn 3, at which point you'd rather get any other land. Grim Backwoods is very helpful for card draw, sacrificing your saplings to get value out of them, and you get to trigger Slimefoot. Since the majority of our creature base is green, Oran Reef the Vastwood is great to help buff them up after they come into the battlefield. Rove Passage is a card I harp on constantly, but in this deck it's great to help use Slimefoot swinging in should it be rocking that infect and not have to worry about getting blocked. Twilight Mire is in this deck to replace Golgari's Signet. I personally feel that in some instances these lands are better in 2-color decks than the actual Signets, but again, your opinion might differ and you might prefer a Signet. Westvale Abbey is another outlet for sacking your saplings, giving you a 5-creature sacrifice to turn into a gigantic indestructible demon that's ready to wreck your opponents. Slimefoot is a deck that I really wanted to put together pretty much after the minute it was spoiled. Being a Golgari color legend, I was already intrigued, and the ability synergizing with more sapling stuff was just pure golden gravy. You can go wide with this deck very easily, and as long as you can start dropping your fungal creatures early, you can quickly begin to churn out your sapling tokens. And while this deck can have white added to it by playing Gave as your commander, I feel that Slimefoot having a win con actually attached to it and being a lot cheaper to cast makes it rate just slightly higher than Gave for now. Anyway, what do you think of this deck? Are there some hidden gems that your Slimefoot deck will have? Feel free to share with the others in the comments section below. Remember to like this video to let others know it's a good one, and subscribe and ring that bell to get notifications whenever new content comes out. We have a Patreon that you can help out with improving our quality even further. We're hoping to get gameplay videos going sometime in the near future, and as always, I will catch you rockstars next upkeep.